Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Stoke Hunters, where we celebrate the spirit of adventure and those who embrace challenges head on. Today we're thrilled to introduce Simon and Andrew, two extraordinary individuals dedicated to supporting veterans through the transformation power of mountain biking with the Dirt Therapy Project. Their commitment to service, both on and off the trails, exemplifies the resilience and camaraderie that defines our community. Join us as we dive into this inspiring journey filled with stories of overcoming obstacles, finding solace in nature, and discovering the joys of shared experiences. Let's welcome Simon and Andrew. Welcome, guys.
Hey, Jared, how's it going?
Hey, how's it
Good.
going? Thanks for having us.
Yeah, of course. Thank you guys for joining.
Yeah,
It's been a
glad to be
blast
here.
getting to know Dirt Therapy and, having conversations with you guys and kind of that top secret stuff that we've been working on that looks kind of cool.
Yeah, definitely got some cool things in the works, it sounds like.
Yeah,
Yep.
for sure. So how did you guys both get involved with Dirt Therapy?
Well, I'll let Simon start on that one because he's been involved a lot longer than I have.
I try to give you the quick and dirty real quick. So I retired in 18 and then I bought a mountain bike and I just started riding. I bought a hardtail and I was invited about after 6 months of riding by another veteran, which took place in a Walgreens parking lot with the lights off and stuff. We're just exchanging tires that I didn't need. And that took in what should have been a 10-minute conversation ended up being 3 hours, 3 or 4 hours. My wife was trying to get a hold of me. Well, she called a couple of times, but she knew just crazy stuff always happens. So fast forward about a week or so, he invited me to Bentonville. He was like, my buddy Jonathan is going to Bentonville. And do you have a GoPro or something? He's like, he just wants to go and get some content for some stuff or whatever. And at that point, I was only riding 6 months. And so I didn't even know where Bentonville was. And then but I was pretty stoked on the mountain biking thing because that I didn't have that growing up, so I didn't really pick that up until after I retired. So I was really bit onto that bug, and with that, when I got invited to this trip, I went and I was talking to Jonathan the next morning, and I was just like, hey man, I was so excited about mountain biking that I'm thinking about starting a nonprofit. And he's like, well, that's what I'm doing. And he's like, it's a Dirt Therapy Project. And and I didn't know I was on the first trip, so it just happened by happenstance. It was pretty crazy. So I just told him, hey man, I'll do whatever I can to support in whatever way I can with my time or whatever. And that's just through a series of different things like video editing for the program, or went to bike mechanic school to try to help out on the trips, work wrench on people's bikes. And then yeah, it's just been growing since 2018. And yeah, it's just been a wild ride, and we kind of grew up really fast, and then we're just trying to get our bearings and reassess right now. But all good though.
Those random conversations and those random meetups where it was supposed to be quick and then turns into 3 hours, they seem to happen more and more frequently now, to me anyways.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
And yourself, Andrew?
So I got involved with the program in the winter of 2022 with some planning and stuff here in Colorado. So the chapter here in Colorado is not very old and hasn't grown a whole lot yet, but I had heard about the program through social media stuff and decided to see if there was a chapter near me. And it turns out that we had some people in Denver, but I live on the western half of the state. So I started getting involved with planning some stuff on the western side of the state and leading some rides as soon as the snow kind of melted in 2023, and have been joining ever since. Just leading rides and trying to help wherever I can with organizing things and fundraising and whatnot.
Nice. Yeah, I find just getting out there and bringing more people out and just chatting about it really helps things grow and take off.
Yeah, absolutely.
So kind of a tradition, and I'm kind of excited about this because the question is kind of fitting for two veterans who kind of you guys sacrificed a lot for your country. So last episode we had the Franklin family, and the question that their 4-year-old asked for you guys is what scares you and how do you overcome that fear?
I'll go first. So one thing that scares me is, and you'll learn about this, Jared, I bet. You're a new dad. I've got a few more years of being a dad on you. So one of the scariest things is sharing my hobbies with my boys that are now 6 and 7. And whenever they get really excited, that's great and it's fun and their skills progress. But then when they want to try new things that are really maybe a little more dangerous, and I'm not at, even when I know their skills are there, I have a hard time going, okay, yeah, it's fine. Go ahead and hit that drop, or, try and ride that really tricky rock feature or roll the really steep section or whatever. And I just don't want to see him get hurt. And, obviously I don't want him to get hurt. I also don't want him to lose the fire and the enjoyment that they have doing the sport. So it's hard for me to let them go, especially my older one, because he's pretty brave when it comes to riding bikes, especially. But I've learned to overcome that by making him talk me through what lines he's going to take, and then also how he's going to do it. And if he can explain to me what he's going to do, then I know whether or not he's in the right ballpark. And also I know that he can visualize it. And I'm pretty sure if you can visualize yourself doing something like that, especially when you're a kid, then you can probably do it. So that's how I kind of get past that. If he can talk me through it and it sounds reasonable, then I let him have at it. And he's had a few crashes, but for the most part, that generally works out.
Yeah, that's a smart way to do it, because usually I find kids have a hard time explaining things because their minds go a mile a minute. So
yeah, it also shows they're focused, which he doesn't focus on much, but mountain biking he'll focus on.
Nice.
That's awesome. And yourself, Simon?
I guess along the same lines as I brought my wife along shortly after I started riding, and she's progressed a crap ton, even though she doesn't ride that much. But even though she's doing some hairy line and stuff, I'm always trying to look away. I don't want to look, because I don't want to be the cause of the crash or whatever, in whatever way that is. But yeah, it's just because I know the injuries that I've gone through, and I would hate her to see with a really serious injury. So that really freaks me out a little bit whenever she's doing crazy lines.
Yeah, I was going through your guys' Instagram accounts and seeing all the sends that Andrew was sending, and then I saw that one rock feature that you went over. It was a while back, Simon, where your tire gets stuck and then you just fly forward off it.
Oh yeah.
You can tell, you can feel that when you talk about it.
Yeah, it still hurts.
The body or the ego?
Both. Yeah, that's where a crash, it just hurts the soul, just internal, it's just guttural. Yeah.
You can see it as soon as your tire hit. You're like,
yeah.
That's going ass over tea kettle.
Dang, yeah. Bringing it back. I like it.
So what kind of inspired both of you guys to get involved with the Dirt Therapy project, and how would you say it's impacted your own lives over becoming part of it?
Andrew?
Well, I guess I got involved because as a veteran myself, current service member, I know that it can be hard sometimes when you transition from one place to another, whether you're just moving from one duty station to another, or you're getting out of the military for good or for a while, to kind of find your community again, to find people to relate with. For me, at least, when I was on active duty, I spent pretty much all day, every day, 12 hours a day with the same people. And then we all lived in the same building. And on the weekends, we all hung out together, so that was, whether you liked them or not, they were your people. And when you get unplugged from that situation, for a lot of people pretty rapidly, and you move back into, a normal civilian life, it can be pretty hard to find a community. A lot of times what you find is you move back to a hometown, or maybe where a lot of people from a past life, but they've all moved on without you. And trying to reintegrate back into that when you've also moved away from who you were when they knew you before, and for good or bad, it can just be a little bit hard to find people that you can really relate to and to get back into a normal swing of things. So I wanted to get involved to see, if there were people in my area that needed someone to hang out with, that I was available for them through the program. And also because I've been riding bikes for a really long time. Riding bikes was always my passion, even as a child. I was raced BMX in my early elementary years and loved riding and jumping bikes off of dirt jumps and homemade ramps in the front yard from, the time that I could pedal a bicycle. So as a teenager, I kind of realized that bikes for me was a good way to get rid of stress and anger and anxiousness and any of those other negative feelings that I had. That was the way that I was able to do it. So I wanted to be able to try and share that with other people, veterans especially, that might need it. So that's kind of how I got involved, just leading group rides and whatnot.
Well, and I haven't been part of the Army, but it seems like when you join, you have your, I'll say this wrong, but like your training and everything, and it kind of like progresses you into it slowly, or maybe not slowly. It's probably fast when it comes at you, but it's at least something for a little bit. Whereas like as soon as you like exit, there's like nothing that helps you really transition back, it seems.
Yeah, it's definitely, when you transition into the military, it's very like a abrupt transition, but there's people all around you all the time and you don't have to make a lot of decisions. You just have to follow. That's the first lesson in any military organization, is following orders, more or less, right? So that first little bit, you're just being kind of brought into that way of following and listening. And you're exactly right. When you transition out of the military, it's the exact opposite. Nobody's telling you what to do anymore. You have complete agency to choose whatever you want to do. And for a lot of people, that can be pretty overwhelming when you haven't been allowed to make those choices in the past.
Yeah. And especially after, if you've had active duty and gone over there and been shot at and lived through that, like, PTSD and anything else, like it's a lot harder to reintegrate with that as well.
Yeah, it definitely can be.
And yourself, Simon?
What was the question again? Sorry, I just want to make sure I answer it right.
Just kind of like what inspired you to join it back in 2018 and how it's impacted your life.
Yeah, for me, it happened in reverse. Like when I bought that mountain bike, I was literally like grasping it, and I'm not trying to turn into dramatic hour or nothing, but I was literally like trying to figure my way about, because I'd say about 17 or so, I had a really rough like patch, and like I had an attempt on my life, and but so I was really trying to like identify like what was going on. So I started putting stuff aside, like alcohol and all these different things, to try to, figure out what was going on. Fast forward, I went through a few different programs to kind of learn the tools and deal with it. And there was like a community within that, right? And then when I got out, like I kind of, just because of the way my military career went, I didn't want anything to do like with the military. So I just bought a mountain bike, like on a whim. I just fucking want to go buy a mountain bike. And it was the most I've ever spent on a bike, by the way. And I didn't even tell my wife about it. Like I just showed up at lunch. She was eating with a friend, and I was pretty much like, I bought a mountain bike, pass the salt, please. And she was like, wait, what? And yeah, I just started riding on my own. And but with that, it's like when I met Jonathan, it was kind of just like the way everything kind of just worked out. It's wild. So of course I was kind of on board, right? I didn't know what that meant. I just know that that's what I wanted to do. And it's like, and in reverse, right? I didn't realize how much the program was going to help me. And like fast forward like 5 years or so, it's like to see the changes within that, like within re-understanding, finding a place to kind of be proud of my military career, to kind of reintegrate with military people. And it's not that I just kind of wanted like to take a break from it all, right? As you do it for like 20 years, and I was already kind of like burnt out.
Yeah.
I think at that point. And so there's a number of things going on, and it was just like I just want to try something different, and I don't know what that is. I went bought the mountain bike, started riding, and then it started to connect me with people on a similar path, right? And Jonathan, in the way of running the program, allowing people to show up as they are, not really trying to. It just works organically, like all
Mhm.
the trips and stuff. There's like a loose itinerary, right? Hey, we're gonna wake up at 8 in the morning, go to get to the bike park, and then we'll kind of just go from there, right? And it just kind of works out, right? And it's interesting how veterans, like nobody says any ranks, right? Like that, I don't think rank has come up like once. I think in conversation, and but with that, it's people just kind of fall in like in line, like just naturally, and just kind of find who they connect with and just start talking to people, sharing resources, sharing like whatever stories, overlapping, like understanding overlapping service. And it's just like, it just happens, you know. And we cook together, we like have conversations, and like through that, those communities are kind of, you know, like, you know, people find, like, let's say they meet each other from, I don't know, Colorado, right? They drive together, they didn't know each other, and then the way back they have that connection, right? And it
Yeah.
happens like that, like whoever goes to who's able to go to the retreats, right? And and then locally we host local rides as well, as Andrew alluded to earlier, and through that there's like connections made here, right? And we introduce like new people all the time, like, hey, I have another bike, let's go out riding. But with that, it's just like kind of picking up the pieces of the community, like, hey man, what are you doing? It's like being a kid, right? Like you're walking down the street about to play football or whatever, and like, hey man, you want to play, you know? And just kind of grabbing. But it's with biking, right? And it's like one of those things we did, as most of us did as kids if we're like lucky enough to have a bike. And
Yeah.
yeah, so with that, it's just kind of help me in reverse, kind of like find myself, if that makes sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, and I see that happen within the program. I get, you know, people messaging me, asking me questions or things that I've gone through or whatever, and vice versa. And, or like, hey, I don't know, man, go talk to this person. And it's like providing this network, right? That
Yeah.
we lost, that tribe we lost from the military, right? And we don't know, you don't have to be a frontline guy, and you don't have, you know, you could be a support guy, admin, whatever. There's still a tribe, right? There's still a culture within each one of these jobs. And when you kind of lose the military, as Andrew said earlier, like, for a lot of people, they don't realize how used they got to it. Like, you know, you're told where to go, told where to be. Um, everything's provided for you, medical, um, financial. You know, you have commissary, BX. You know, it's like this own city, right, that you're living
Yeah.
on, and you're kind of all in this culture and this understanding. And so, just to kind of exit it and nobody's watching you anymore, it's just like, you know, I don't know. It's crazy.
The piece missing.
Yeah, yeah, and I think through the retreats and like local rides, we're able to. It's crazy because we just know, right? We kind of just start talking with each other, you know, and we just click
Hmm.
most of the time, you know. I mean, every once in a while, there's like people conflict, you know, it's people, right? So,
Yeah.
but for the most part, I mean, it's pretty awesome to see.
Hmm. Well, like yourself, I've only been biking for, like, I've just got into biking and started with a hardtail. But the mountain bike community, I've said it a few times with people, it's like the friendliest, tightest community that you don't know exists until you're in it. And I feel like when you have mountain biking and veterans, I feel like it would be like that on steroids. Like as soon as you put them two and two together, it's like, you know, you just talk and go pedal and have a blast.
Yeah, and do crazier stuff together. Seems like.
Yeah, that's part of it.
Well, I've seen,
Yeah.
I don't even watch, like I'm watching Andrew, all your reels, Andrew. I'm like seeing your drops and stuff like that. I'm like, yep, if I went biking with Andrew, he'd be like an hour and a half ahead of me, and I'd still be like dying of breath.
Well, sometimes the camera can make things look a little cooler than they are in real life, and
That's
that
right.
applies to me for sure. But you bring up a good point, Jared, because I have been riding for a long time, and I'm certainly not the fastest guy around, but I'm not a beginner either. But that, I enjoy riding with people of all skill levels. And I have found that what you're saying about the veteran community and the biking community overlap kind of being on steroids is one way I've really appreciated the program is when I've traveled to other places, I've a lot of times been able to find people that were involved with the local community that I didn't know personally, but we had the connection of mountain biking veterans, right? And I've been able to find people to ride with everywhere that I go to through that. And that's been really nice. And a lot of times they've been people that were potentially a little slower than me or a little less skilled than me, but it didn't matter. We had tons of fun riding together, sometimes for multiple days in a row. And I've done the same thing with a lot of people that happen to be traveling through my area will, say, hey, what are the trails like over there, whatever. And I'll just offer, hey, when are you coming through? I'd love to take you out and take you on whatever kind of trails you like. What is it you're into? And where would you want to go? And kind of just act as the local guide. And I really enjoy that aspect for sure.
Mm-hmm. There's something, I don't know, just helping others. Like it gives you that warm feeling a lot of the times, and it's exciting. Like once people get it, like, if someone's like doing a drop or doing a trail for the first time and they hadn't done it, or like, they were maybe a little intimidated, and then they get it, like that smile or like that like excitement on them, like that's addicting to see, I find.
For sure. Yeah. You can kind of live vicariously and really enjoy something, a trail that, or a feature that maybe I've ridden hundreds of times, but taking somebody down at their first time and seeing how excited they are about cleaning it is really fun.
Yeah, 100%. Like I need to, well, I've met so many people after creating the business and like reaching out to different community groups. There's so many people that I have to go ride with now in different places in America. I'm like, I've basically called it, it's like, it's a good day to bike in the States or something. And then I'll have to go to like California, go to Texas, go to Colorado, go to Florida to like see everyone that I've chatted to through Instagram and just these podcasts.
Yeah, for sure.
Come on, Dad.
Yeah, it's good to build a network.
Yeah, I'll be the slow one. Maybe I'll replicate that rock drop that Simon did.
Oh no, we'll keep you safe.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's nice now, like, because I went full suspension this year. I'm just looking at it in the corner because it's so pretty. But it's nice that the bike does the absorbing of the impacts rather than my knees.
Yeah, that is good. But also the skills you learned on the hardtail make you able to absorb those and be a lot stronger on the bike than you would have otherwise. So that's good.
And picking routes. Because I don't know, bikes are expensive, and like you said, Simon, like when you first bought that first bike, like it was like my first bike was like 1,500 Canadian, so probably 1,000 American, which is nothing in comparison to bikes now, like what you can get. But like I was like, if I don't like this, I don't really want to buy a full suspension and then whichever. And then, you just slowly start doing it more and more and more. And then your body starts progressing to it. And you're like, this is kind of addicting. And then you meet the community and you're like, this is really addicting.
Yeah, definitely. Like hardtail, like I still have my hardtail, my first bike. I can't get rid of it. It's like a sentimental thing. But either way, like it's really fun to ride. Like it definitely keep you honest. I like to go back and forth between the two, just to kind of keep myself honest because like, a lot of bad habits from full suspension.
Yeah.
So it's cool to go back and forth, but it does beat the crap out of you.
I still like to ride hardtails too. And I went to hardtail riding exclusively for about 2 years, like
nice
years ago. My wife really wanted a newer 29er full suspension bike, and she started riding mine. And then after she started riding it more, said, you know what, why don't you just have it instead of us sharing it? And I had a hardtail as a backup, and I just started riding it all the time. We sold her 27.5 bike, and that was really fun for quite a while. But it definitely does beat you up. When I got back to having a full suspension again after a few years of not, and I realized that a 20-mile ride on the hardtail felt like like the longest ride ever, and then I could do a 30-mile ride on the full suspension and wouldn't be nearly as beat up. It's like, okay, yeah, I can do all the same things, but it takes a lot more out of me to do it.
Yeah.
Have you got into the e-bike realm yet?
No, I've test rode a few people's that have been silly enough to let me touch their really expensive equipment. But other than that, no. Our trails around here are extremely e-bike unfriendly. So there's not very many legal places to ride them where I live. Um, and as you said, bikes are expensive. And if you add motors to them, they get even more expensive. So I'm totally happy to stick to a normal bike for now, but definitely not against e-bikes if somebody wanted to give me one.
All right.
Yeah, that'd be a nice gift. Maybe Simon will get you that for Christmas.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
Really good.
Yeah.
Of 2075.
By then I'll need one.
Petty cash.
Well, having the manual pedal, I find, helps keep the front of stomach a little slimmer.
That is true. And I need all the help I can get there. So I figure I might as well just keep pedaling.
So for you, when you guys were active service and, in the military, was it every day quite physically demanding?
For me, it was. So on active duty, I was the 25th Infantry Division. So with that, yeah, everything was physical, especially being, a lower enlisted guy. That's kind of the main thing that they want you to know how to do is move. They want you to be able to move with heavy things on your back. They want you to be able to move when you're tired. They want you to be able to, move up and over obstacles, through obstacles, whatever. So, yeah, it's very physically demanding. We did everything manually, and we did lots of hard exercise every single day. So for me, that definitely was the case. So then when I got out, I definitely gained some weight and lost some physical fitness. And that was one of the reasons why I got back into mountain biking, because I didn't ride at all while I was on active duty, other than a handful of times here and there, spread out across several years. So I was glad that my fitness was one thing that drove me to get back into biking, and I realized how much I still enjoyed it once I got back into it.
Yeah, I was Air Force, so it wasn't quite the same. Like the way they kind of go about it, like, is depending on your job. Like you have to have like you have to do a PT test like every 6 months or something, or a year. Like you get like awarded, like if you, but you would still get tested like randomly, like to pass a PT test. But for us, I mean, just I did a lot of physical labor, I guess, like a lot of digging, trenching, and jumping in manholes, climbing towers and stuff. So it's physical in a different way. But yeah, it was. I think like the most old course stuff I did was like in basic and like tech school, and then like after that, it was just, the only old course I had was climbing up a comm tower. It's like 300 or 400 feet. That was about it. But
that's a pretty serious obstacle, though.
yeah,
that's gotta be pretty hard. I don't think I could do that with full gear on.
Yeah, I mean, it gets heavy too when you climb up, like, because the first run you got to go up, you got to take all your ropes and your like toolbox or tool bag and everything. So the first one is usually pretty good, but you take breaks on the way up.
Yeah, I was just thinking, because like, after not bike or having the little one, I haven't been doing physical activity since, like, we had a late winter, so probably November was like our last ride. So it's been a while since the cardio was pumping. But even yesterday when I went for the ride, like, it was painful, but like the endorphins and everything made it feel good. So I was just thinking, like, does that help veterans and get into mountain biking? Because like, it is very physically demanding, and it was similar from the Army days.
Yeah, I think the physical demand from it is definitely one thing that draws us. But, and I'm maybe not the best one to talk about this, since I was super into biking before I ever joined the military. But I think one of the common things that draws veterans to it is like more it's physical and it's hard. Like we seek out challenges. That's often why we join the military in the first place, right? Because it doesn't sound like an easy thing to do. And it's not an easy thing to do. So we're kind of looking for those same challenges and overcoming obstacles when the time comes on our bikes. And then I think it also kind of just adds like some of that same mental framework that we're all trained to work inside of within the military of risk management. You know, you're scanning the trail, you're looking at obstacles, you're looking at everything around you, and just kind of living with a little bit of that, you know, adrenaline too. You know, there's a lot of adrenaline involved in action sports, and that's the same thing that a lot of us got pretty used to, whether it was rigorous training inducing adrenaline or combat scenarios. There's a lot of adrenaline to be had when you're in the military. So I think finding positive ways to seek some risk and some adrenaline is really what mountain biking does for some veterans, and what our project is all about, is trying to provide a healthy outlet to do those things.
Yeah, 100%. And it, you know, going from like day one of like, you know, maybe having to push up a trail or push up a section, and then continually coming back, like, and once you get it, like, man, is it that also adds fuel to the fire, I find.
For sure.
So from your time with Dirt Therapy, what have been some of the most memorable experiences you've had on with the excursions? Would you say?
Well, Simon, I know you had a pretty cool one this last year at Angel Fire, but I don't know if that's your most memorable or not, but it's kind of a good story.
That was pretty memorable.
Yeah.
I mean, it was so we were doing we went in September. Like, we try to go every year in September, or we've gone for the last 4 or 5 years. September 11th weekend. And like two or 3 years ago, we did Lost Lake, which is about 7 miles of climbing, and then it's like very high exposure and all these things. But we weren't able to do it last year, but this year we were like, hey, let's do it again. And the day started out nice, you know, it was check the weather, and the climb was pretty brutal, you know, for a lot of us, especially it was the first day. So first day coming from Texas, which is pretty much at sea level, you know, I don't know, like 1,400 feet or whatever it was. Yeah, so we're kind of dealing with all that. We finally get to the top, and then the storm moves in, and it just starts like hailing on us. It starts raining. It's cold. Most of us didn't bring any like cold weather gear or like jackets, so it was pretty challenging. We learned a lot that day, and it was just, I don't know. Everyone kind of came away with their own like sense of like bond over it, right? Because we were like, hey, we're gonna stay together. We're gonna stay at the top and meet each other. But then it got to a point like we got to send some people down because lightning's starting to strike. It's real windy. It's raining, and we got hypothermia. All these things, right, are coming in, and and then we had one member back, and she was struggling, right, with the ride. And then we had another veteran with her, and he was helping her along. And then me and Jonathan, we sent 4 or 5 people forward, or 7 people forward, to go get the cars and stuff, and to get out of the wet as quick as they can. And then so me and Jonathan were just like slinking along, like making sure that they were coming, right? And it was just a long day. It was cold. People's hands were like frozen and stuff. And I mean, I don't know, coming from Texas and then not being prepared for the cold. I say that, right? These guys in Canada, it's like freaking negative 45.
Well, that's what I was going to ask, whether this, like when you said hypothermia and like hands were freezing, I'm like, oh, this is cold. This isn't just Texas cold.
Yeah. No, yeah, we're in New Mexico, so I mean, it got high up in the elevation, but yeah, I don't know. It gets pretty cold here in Texas. Not that type of cold, like, but it's a different type of cold. It gets in your bones cold here. But
yeah, you know, that 80 Fahrenheit is really cold.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, you got to put a hoodie on.
Gotta put special jackets on for that. But yeah, that was pretty memorable, and like they each have their own memories with them. And it's sometimes we have different people, so it's like different experiences, different vibes, and stuff like that. So they're all pretty awesome.
Yeah, and you've probably, like, when people, like, you know, you were there, you've been with Dirt Therapy from the start. You've probably seen, you know, especially coming like leaving active duty and leaving the army, some people struggling, and then, you know, them joining the community, and then like them growing and, you know, getting healthier is got to be quite touching as well.
Yeah, definitely. And that's one thing that we didn't expect. Like, I had one veteran tell me, actually on that same trip, uh, like it was towards the end of the trip, and he had came up from Arizona, and afterwards he kind of just said like, man, like I'm gonna kind of start eating right and working out because, you know, I came up here and you guys are all healthy, and I was like, who are you looking at? You know. But that's just a perception that he got from it, right? I mean, from wherever he was at. But yeah, no, it's cool. Like to like, I feel like I'm in better shape now than I was in the military. Like, you know, I was eating like crap and stressed out and not sleeping and all these things, right? Just kind of always going, going, going. But riding bikes definitely, um, yeah, it definitely keeps you in shape. And I don't know. And like the more you challenge yourself, the more you progress, and like you start racing like we do, like you
Yeah.
start getting better, start working on technique and skills and all these different things. And it's just one of those things, maybe as Andrew alluded to earlier, like we kind of just find something, we kind of bite down on it and just keep going, and maybe and try to keep that balance within it, right? Because injuries do happen.
Yeah. Well, and especially when you know, you like with biking, you're like, oh, maybe if I have like, instead of having the burger and like the pop, maybe I'll have like a healthier burger, and maybe I'll go diet, or like, you know, maybe I'll get water instead. It's like once you start having one thing kind of start being consistent, I find it a lot easier to get other things consistent in your life.
Yeah, I agree with that. And the one thing for me with biking in general, just having a consistent thing to go do as a like a stress reliever has been big for me. I know you're a new dad, and one of the things that we did when we had our first kid, he was about 6 or 8 months old. We started looking for a house closer to the trails because my wife and I both like to ride bikes, and we weren't getting to do that anymore. And ultimately, you know, it took some time, but we were able to make that move. And that was a really big change for us, and made when our second came along, things a little easier, because having the routine, I couldn't go out and go for these huge rides anymore that I used to when there was nobody at home worried about me or needing my help. But I could sneak out for 45 minutes and do a quick lap, and my wife could do the same. And that made a huge difference in our life, was having consistently being able to get out and ride, and trying to optimize our life around being able to do that.
Yeah, for sure. And you know, like I've had like it's funny because like last year I would go for like 20-kilometer rides every morning, and then now I think I've gotten 2 rides in 4 weeks.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I found it's more important to be consistent, even if you don't go far along. Maybe you only go, you know, to the end of the neighborhood, or, you know, you go to the dirt jumps that the kids down the street built, you know, at the end of the cul-de-sac or whatever. You know, if you can take 15 minutes and go ride twice a week, then you're better off than if you just don't do it. At least I very, very, very rarely have ever regretted getting on my bicycle and going for a ride, even if it wasn't the best ride ever, unless I got hurt. There's been a few of those I wish I could just take back. But hindsight's 2020.
Well, it's funny you say that, like, you know, getting on a bike, it's nice and stuff like that. Like I would never have, like, I didn't classify myself as a mountain biker until I think September, and it was because like people like, oh, do you ride your bike? I'm like, yeah, you know, I've been going like 5 days a week and average like 100 kilometers, which is 60 miles for you guys. When people are like, oh, you're a mountain biker, I'm like, oh, I guess I am. But it's like, yeah, it's just nice to get on it and go.
Yeah, I think that's another good thing about mountain biking is most people don't have, like, there's not a whole lot of like gatekeeping for the most part. Like if you have a mountain bike and you like to ride it, you're a mountain biker in my book. You know, you don't have to have any certain skill level or ride a certain amount of distance or any sort of fitness. You just have to enjoy doing it, is really all it comes down to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like we just had a new follower like start tagging us in a lot of stuff, which is exciting, but like she's just on a simple mountain bike and getting out on the trails, and like the stoke that she has, like it doesn't matter if you have the fanciest bike, just have fun.
That's right.
So
I had a lot of fun on my Huffy when I was a kid.
Yep, me too. My dad had to weld the handlebars on about 100 times because I kept ripping them off, but I still had fun.
I definitely learned not to try to jump sheetrock. That doesn't hold you
hold up too well.
I don't even know what a Huffy is.
Oh,
it's like a Walmart bike.
I don't know if they exist anymore, but they used to. Everybody's bike used to be a Huffy if it came from Walmart or anything like that. Any big box store, they sold you a Huffy.
Yeah,
they still exist. It says they've been around, but like they started in 1892. It says.
Yeah, they've been around a long time.
Because that's what you're doing afterwards. You're huffing.
Yeah, they're heavy too, so it helped with that.
Yeah. No nice gearing to climb or anything.
Nah.
No, coaster brakes and all steel construction.
Yeah. Yep. So the racing team is newer to the Dirt Therapy project. How did you guys start that up?
So the first race, again, it was just like there was a race in here in Texas, and Jonathan and I went to it, and we had a really good time. And then we just decided to start one afterwards. He was just like announced it or whatever, or like on the page. So that was about 2019, and that continued, right? We just start, people that wanted to race for us, so like we would like meet them and talk to them, or they were racing and people like recommending, like, hey man, this guy's a veteran, like, so we'd go talk to him, hang out with him, ride with him for a little bit, and then that just kind of grew, right, little by little, and we just started doing like races like all around here in Texas, and then we started doing races in Arkansas, and then that kind of just grew from there. People reaching out to Instagram, like, hey, what do I need to do to be on the team? And then we were also trying to manage, like sponsorship, right? And like how we're going to do all that stuff. So it's a lot of like lessons learned. We're still growing. We're still learning. Definitely need to get better on social media. I will say that. But the lot of things that happen are like the things that aren't posted, right? Like a lot of these races that we go to, again, it's like mini version of the retreat. So we're talking about, where we just got to talking with people, kind of start riding together, start racing it, like sharing each other's race lines, helping out people, kind of taking the mentality of next man up. You kind of train the person behind you, and try to help people when we can. And it's just like kind of bringing that same culture from the military, looking out for others. So it's not just with veterans, but it's also trying to seek those veterans that are naturally kind of just, willing to help or coach or lead or what have you. So that's kind of like one aspect of it, but yeah.
That's cool. Sorry, I'm with my ADD, I bounce around a little bit.
Me too.
But
yeah.
So when people because like you left in 2018, is that right, Simon? From the Army or Air Force?
Air Force. 2018, May of 2018.
Did they do they give you anything? Like, are they ever like here's a group, or like here's where you can get assistance or anything, or is it kind of like you guys are out on your own as soon as you leave?
No, they try to do a job, at least the Air Force. There's a congressional mandate to have something called TAPS, which is transition assistance, something. But it's pretty much like a week of our processing, and like they're showing you how to be it's like information by fire hose, right? It's just a lot of information within a week. I mean, I think they might have extended to 2 weeks. I'm not sure now, but they try to give you all the resources and help you work on your resume and all these things, right? So you can land a job on the outside, which are great. But I don't think, and maybe they're doing it now, but at least when I got out, they weren't there yet of trying to connect you with other programs that you can participate in. At least I don't recall that. Like giving a list. Hey, you're going back to Texas, so here's these nonprofits that you can reach out to or what have you. But on the other end of that, right, it's veterans not wanting to take from somebody else, right? So like it's not. I don't know if I would have used that list if they would have given it to me anyways.
Yeah, for sure. Because you don't want like you yeah the like sorry mumble jumble, but you know some people in the Army are probably some of the strongest, hardworking people that I can think of. And then you know you guys probably always have in your mindset that there's someone always worse off than you, so you don't want to take from someone else. Is that a common thing you find?
Yeah, I think there's some of that for sure, and you definitely don't want to take it from other veterans is a common thing. If I think Simon needs a resource more than I do, and I don't want to take away something from him or whatever. And I went through a similar scenario when I left active duty to Simon. I think they called it something slightly different, and they're always revamping these programs because they get feedback where, the intentions are great, what they're trying to provide, but a lot of times the execution is poor. You know what I mean? So they're trying to do all the right things, but like Simon said, they give you tons of information in a week or 2 week span, and you can't digest all that information, or you can't keep it all organized. And realistically, at that same time, you're also dealing with the fact that you're moving yourself if you're single, or your entire family, and you're worried about all the things that go with moving all your stuff, your whole family, getting kids enrolled in school, finding housing. You often are moving to a different continent maybe, or a completely different part of the world, different part of the country. So there's only so much of that you can really make use of. And I transitioned out from active duty fairly young, but I felt like the Army had trained me to do a job very well, and I was very confident in my ability to do that job. And so I didn't really feel like I was going to need any help. You know what I mean? Like I was confident in what I was doing. And so I think for me, I didn't realize how much I'd come to depend on the other people around me and that community until it was gone. So, I kind of like, oh, that's not for me. That's for other people that are in need, not for somebody like me who's got my stuff together. I'm fine. And I mean, I was fine, and I had a good support system with my family. I'm lucky there, but I found that I didn't really realize how much I needed those people around me until they weren't there anymore, as far as my coworkers went, my teammates. And that was a big change for me, because growing up as a teenager and a kid, I had lots of friends or close friends, but I was pretty happy to be alone. I spent a lot of time out in the woods by myself, riding bikes, building things, spent a lot of time with my dog, just wandering around and being somewhat feral from the time I was in middle school till I became an adult, So being alone was by no means odd to me until I lived with other people and spent all my time with them every day for a few years. And then being alone was really weird after that. And I never thought that would happen to me. So it definitely does change. You can change who you are and what you're used to. So I think there's a lot of people that don't think they'll need the help until they realize they do after the fact.
Yeah, I mean, to add to that, like you're just so overstimulated, right? And then depending on what your experiences were, whether deployments or like the ops tempo, or like you just constantly have stuff coming at you. You start a checklist in the morning, and then like it just gets longer as the day goes on, because there's like meetings on top of, like, whatever the case, right? They're just the ops tempo flying out or not knowing when you're going to leave. At least that was my experience, where like I went TDY a lot and then deployed. So it's those combination of two things, and then going different time zones and different countries, and just not sleeping, and then like, so everything's just like you're just kind of pegged out on multiple levels, right?
Mm-hmm.
And by no means, I mean, I'm not trying to be all negative about it, because there's a lot of positive, right? But it's just the reality of it, right? You're doing your job. Depending on your position, you could be on the road a lot, traveling, or just being at work from like 6 in the morning to like 10 o'clock at night, like working on EPRs or whatever the case may be. But it's whatever that mission is, right? but a lot of people kind of just dive into it. And then, so you take all that stimulation or, yeah, you take all that. I don't think I used to use that word right, but if you take all that and then you kind of just apply it and then you kind of just get out, while you're, transitioning, as Andrew talked about, like, getting a house and moving all your stuff and everything else. And then you're just kind of out. And then like the retire, like whatever, it's over, right? And then it's just like you're kind of alone with your thoughts and you're just like, you know what I mean? It's like, I don't know, watching like a scary movie or something. And that's probably a bad example. But it's like watching just like, and then just walking out and it's just like quiet, and that's usually where it happens. And like, let me go back to the whole thing about, yeah, I mean, as far as like the programs are out there for a reason, right? So use them, right? There's an approval process, right? And so use them. I mean, because if not, like, I don't know, like that money, those numbers aren't seen, and then like these like nonprofits or whoever can't like raise money because they can't show data for that. And with that, it's also like, even if you try something, right, it may not be for you. There's also other nonprofits or other things that you could do, like archery or these other things. It's not just pigeonholed to like one thing, and sometimes it's a lot of different things that could help you through whatever, or just find that community or that tribe again. If that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. No, I was just thinking because like you're like, oh, I want to get better at social media, but I think it would be cool. Like maybe you guys already have it. But like when someone leaves, it's like they're like, oh, if you like mountain biking, here's a dirt therapy veterans mountain biking group.
Yeah, that'd be cool to have somebody just kind of sharing nonprofits like that, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like share any interest. Like, they probably have so much data on, like every soldier and everything. It wouldn't be hard to keep interest. And then when they leave, it's like, here you go. Here's some stuff that you liked when you were in the Army. Here's some nonprofits in your area. Your 2 weeks of transitioning, this is just going in one ear out the other, but keep this. So then, when you're ready, you can check in on them later. I think that.
Yeah, I think that sort of thing definitely could work and does happen, I think, to some degree, but I think it's more, rather than a big effort from like the government or whatever, it's more localized. Like I know Simon and his wife have been trying to work a little more closely with the local military installation that's in their area. So I could see that's something that, you guys could do, but you're putting flyers up and talking to people and whatnot. So I think people that transition out and stay in your area would definitely probably be some of the people that join into your program. Similarly, we do here in my area, we have the biggest Veterans Affairs hospital for a pretty big regional area. So we are always kind of trying to put the information out in the hospital, because a lot of times that's where veterans are that are seeking help, that they might be there and they see a flyer or something that says, hey, come ride bikes with us, and give me a call or send me an email or find us on Facebook and can go out for one of our group rides, or just hit me up. And I often go for rides with just one other person that says, hey, I want to try this out, or I need somebody to hang out with on Thursday evening. Could you come out and go for a ride with me, or go hit some dirt jumps or whatever? So.
Yeah. And that's a great point. To add to that, like, even though like therapy is in the word and in the name, right? It's like we don't have a therapist on staff yet, right? Because that's just challenging unless they go with us on the trips. But the therapy is within it. It just happens like in conversations, right? You're riding up and you start talking, and people kind of just have their own things and connect with other people. And that's kind of where like a lot of that comes from, local rides. Like sometimes, I don't know, so I'll have somebody hit me up like, hey man, you want to ride? And then they just want to get something off their chest or just talk about whatever. And it happens on the trails, and we just talk about it and kind of give advice in whatever way we can, and then, keep going, and I think that's one of those things that it just happens. I don't know, it's something with nature or what have you, but it definitely, it seems to flow a lot more free in that case, as opposed to like a room or anything like that.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I find your brain works differently when you're doing activities. And then we don't have our distractions like our cell phone and our Facebook and our TikTok. And, yeah, we're probably huffing breath up the hill. But, in between gasping for air, we can chat a little bit. But I find even like, yeah, you don't have a therapist, but like sharing and being real and, it just does, like, and someone always has to take the first step because, most people don't share until someone else usually tells them something. But
Right.
I found it goes a long way.
Yeah. And I said that for two reasons, because on one end, right, there's people that don't want to participate in the program because they have the misconception of like therapy, they don't need therapy, right? And then they take it literal. But on the other end, it's just like it's just part of it, right? It just happens in that way. And I don't know. That makes sense.
Yeah, I'd be curious. Well, it'd be interesting because, like, there's something about being in nature and everything. Like, when we go back to how humans were like living in caves and being a lot closer to nature than we were. I wonder when we just get out there, if it's like our body responding, and that's when we, it naturally happens.
Yeah, I think it does. And also, replacing the, negative stress in our lives with the physical stress of doing something physical and hard, I think can help kind of reframe things and either let go of that stress or address it if need be. I think those two things kind of go hand in hand, getting outside and getting your therapy from the dirt itself, being outdoors, but also doing the physical exercise is big as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of, people way smarter than me that are putting out the research, like Andrew Huberman, that kind of talks about like the benefits of nature and going outside and forward movement with the eyes and stuff. But it's but even without that data, right, you can just tell like night and day, like in a, I don't know, work structure or on the trails, even if you're walking on the trails, it still has the same effect.
I think it's kind of being like, I don't know, for a lot of like when we're in society, we can distract ourselves with Facebook and like anything. But when you're kind of outside in nature and, you don't have those distractions, it's like, then your mind kind of just slowly works at things. Like even if you try to ignore it, it's like, oh, this crappy thing that happened. You like slowly, you're like thinking, and then, maybe you did this section and you're like, man, this was way harder than this crappy thing that just happened to me. And then you're like, oh, maybe this wasn't as bad as I think. And then you slowly work through, and probably by the end of your ride, you're feeling a bit better by just being on that ride.
Yeah, I agree.
Can you guys share any upcoming initiatives or projects that Dirt Therapy's involved in, and how any listeners could support or get involved?
So, like, the Dirt Therapy project has just changed homes. So it's moving to Bentonville, Arkansas now. So they're in a transition right now with University Health and Performance, which is where they train certified trainers to be coaches, and they're putting so they're going to be going under the Veterans Future Foundation, which is like their vehicle for nonprofits. So that's the exciting news. So that could it's going to be like changing some things going forward. All positive, I'm sure. But yeah, so that's pretty big news. Jonathan, who's the founder, Jonathan Hagerman, has been running the nonprofit for like about 6 years. While having 4 kids plus a full-time job, and then like hosting all the trips, coordinating all these things, and so he's kind of burning the candle at both ends. So this provides him an opportunity to work on the mission like full time. So it's pretty exciting, and that came from a ride actually. The person that he met, we were in Bentonville, Arkansas on a retreat like 3 years ago, and we decided to just to jump in like in a creek, And as we're there hanging out, somebody walked by and he just assumed that we were veterans, so they got to talking. Fast forward, they pretty much merging with them, so that's pretty cool. But yeah, you could follow us on at Dirt Therapy Project to see what the latest updates are, or tdtp.org is the website, and you can follow things there. There's a YouTube channel, the Dirt Therapy Project, and there's some retreats in there that we posted, or you can follow us on at tdtp racing. But yeah, those are different ways you can keep up and with anything we're doing. And yeah.
Yeah, and if you want to get involved, whether that's if you want to go on a ride or whatever, you can use the TDTP website to find your local chapter, or there's a contact us button that if you drop an email through that, then one of us will eventually get that and respond to you based on what geographical area you are in. Or you can reach out directly through Instagram or Facebook, and Jonathan or somebody else will respond to you and kind of send you in the right direction to get involved. And if you want to get involved in supporting us, you can do the same thing, drop an email, or there's a donation button on the website as well. If you just wanted to donate a couple of bucks, that always helps.
That's sweet. And kind of as we wrap up, and kind of my exciting thing, what question would you like to ask next week's guest?
Have you thought of one, Simon?
No, I was thinking about this earlier, and what's one question we would ask them?
Well, I thought of one during the show.
Nice.
I didn't have much time today to review the questions. I had a pretty busy day being out sick yesterday. But the question I came up with was based on what you said about the kids asking these questions from last week. Was who's your hero and why? I think that's a pretty fun thing to ask people to think about.
Nice.
Yeah, that is a good one. Who's your hero?
Oh man, you're turning it around on me.
Damn.
I don't know. I have had lots of people that I have admired over the years for various different reasons. And it's hard. I try to think about that with more of a youthful idea, because I think as an adult, you start to realize that everyone's humans and no one's perfect. So that true hero idea just isn't out there. But yeah, I don't know. I would have to think about that for a minute. Simon, you got anything?
I mean, it's probably, there's a bunch of them, right? But I think the one that, especially like given in time, right, with age and stuff, and I would say my dad, just because like to see him work every day, like he would work on a roof, like with tar and stuff in Texas, and he never complained, and he probably wasn't his best all the time, but like he definitely gave me appreciation for like hard work and ethic, and like because even like after he got off, he would have to come home and start working on the house because my mom had him working on the house. And I joked with him recently. I was like, "Man, you had to go to work to get a vacation." Because but either way, like he taught me a lot and stuff like that. So yeah, he's still going welding in the backyard and stuff. But yeah, he definitely doesn't make too many excuses.
That makes sense. Yeah, that's a
Jared,
good hero.
do you have a hero that you can think of?
Yeah, I was thinking about it, and it's interesting because you kind of lose, like you don't think about it throughout your life. Or like someone, like I found it isn't someone who, like you continue to hold on to. But kind of the two people I'd look up to now, one came from reading the book Shoe Dog. So Phil Knight, the founder of Nike, I think what he built and like when it started, and the mentality and just wanting to make a better shoe and doing it with friends has gone a long way. And the one quote that I'll take from that book and always be is what he said was he's like, it's just business. It's never just business. And if it's just business, then that means business is very bad. So like I found that fascinating because like someone who, you know, has a net worth of like billions of dollars now is, you know, has always said it should be more than just, you know, making money and whatever. Like that goes a long way because like a lot of corporations, it seems nowadays, just wants to make a quick buck and doesn't care about the little guy. And then the second one would be like Jake Burton, because I'm like, you know, it'd be amazing to have Good Day Optics to be a brand like Burton or be a brand like Nike one day. So yeah, those are my two kind of people I look up to.
Yeah, that makes sense as an entrepreneur. That's a cool way to look at it.
And then kind of last question, if someone was, you know, listening to this podcast and, you know, having some bad days or in the funk and you could speak to them one-on-one, trying to help it get a little bit better, what would you tell them right now?
Well, number one, I would say there's lots and lots of programs out there. Whether you're a veteran, whether you're not, whether you're a school-age child or a grandmother, there's so many resources available in our world today that reach out one way or another, and you can get some help from whoever you need it from, and people will be happy to point you in the right direction. But I think from personal experience, if you're finding yourself in one of those low spots and you're not having a good time, is you just got to kind of push past that barrier to go out and do something. You know, if that's the something is go out in the shop and pump up the tires on your bike and ride around the block because that's all you have energy for, then make that ride around the block. Or if all you've got energy for is, you know, taking a shower and making some lunch and eating it and doing something healthy for yourself by putting some food in your body and performing basic hygiene, then do it. You know, I think you just got to do what you can when you can, and you'll find yourself getting out of those funks. And talking to people, that's something that after being married for many years now, that my wife and I have gotten a lot better at. And it's like, hey, you don't seem like you're happy. And it's like, yeah, I'm not. Why? Well, I don't know why I'm not happy, but I'm not. So here, you know, what do we need to do about it? Oh, I need to exercise, or I need to eat better, or I need to just, you know, vent to you about how I'm not happy right now or whatever. So find somebody to talk to, and then look for the resources that are available to you, or have somebody help you look for those resources would be my advice.
Yeah, like Andrew covered a lot of it, but yeah, definitely just try to push through that barrier. It's a skill, like especially if you find yourself in a deep rut. It's a skill, like to continually, consistently, like push through that barrier. And it's like it's almost like, you know, a train at a standstill, you know, and it takes a lot of effort to get that train moving. But once you get it moving, you start creating momentum, and it's just like focusing on each opportunity to try to do something in that right direction. Try not to get too far ahead of it. Don't think about what could happen. Just get moving, and like just it's kind of going back to Nike, right? Just do it, you know, pretty much. Just get up, start moving. You know, it's tough. And speaking from personal experience, yeah, and especially if you're really in a really dark place, if I could go back and, but it was just like, even if it's just like sitting up in bed, I'm gonna sit up in bed. You know, I didn't sit up yesterday or whatever, right? Just sit up in bed and put your legs down, like steps, and then just keep moving. And then each day do a little bit more. But at the very least, just work through those barriers. And then, like, again, community, find somebody you trust, talk to them, but also understand they are human. You know, they may be there for you for a lot, but they may not always be there for you. So you also need to start understanding, like, you need to start doing stuff for yourself and finding, you know, branching that network out, right? Because it's all within your control, at least your actions to help yourself. But it's, you know, just to start doing it is the tricky part. So.
It's fun. It's interesting you say, like, you know, just sit up in bed, or, you know, put your feet down and do one step. Because I find a lot of people always think they, you know, have to change the world on day one. And it's like, if you're just 1% better each day, like that goes a long way. And even just in a year, if you just do 1%, which, you know, is nothing at the, like, you know, it's very tiny. By the end of the year, you're 37 times better than what you were when you first started.
It sounds cheesy, but the simplest thing is usually the thing that works the most. It's not like some, you know, following some mantra or something like that. It's just like, just get moving, you know, and like, yeah, like you said, one step at a time.
Well, and it's kind of funny, like, you know, you just get moving. That's kind of how you got into mountain biking and how like, you know, it just, you start doing it and then you figure it out along the way. Like, you don't need to know every answer.
And that's crazy. Like, so you bring up some things with that, and I'll try to make this quick, but it's that very thing, right? I just got outside, and each time, even more recently, when I had injuries and I could have been like soaking, you know, in you know, licking my wounds and stuff, right? Like when I push through that, like to like, you know what, I'm gonna be hurting anyways. I'm gonna go and do this thing with everyone else, you know, on this trip or whatever. And so you push through it, and then you end up having a better time than you would have if you would just stay like, you know, in your fields or whatever, or like in pain or whatever. Like you can be in pain anyway, so just push through that always led to more opportunities and different conversations and different perspectives. So you never know what's going to be on the other side of that door, you know. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if we stay positive with it. Try to stay positive with it.
100%. But thank you both. Your dedication to supporting veterans through the Dirt Therapy Project is truly admirable. Thank you for sharing your insights, experiences, and passion for making a difference in the lives of veterans and sharing your good days. And yeah, it was a great conversation. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Jared. Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.